Now, when I read this scripture, God brought this to me, which I want to let it be known to each and every one of us today as we've gathered as God's children. Faith Bible Church. Hear, my children, the instruction of a father. Hear, my children, the instruction of a father. Hear. Now, brothers and sisters, it is God here who is speaking. And then he says, hear, my children. Now, I want you to know that you are called children. I want you to know that you are called children. I am a child before God. And then God says, hear, my children. The instruction of a father. It is the instruction that comes from the Father. It comes from God. And God says, hear, my children. The instruction of a father. Now, if we read in Romans chapter 10, when we read in Romans chapter 10, verse 17, the Bible says, faith cometh by hearing, hearing by the word of God. Now, faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God, which means we only have faith. Faith comes to us by just only hearing. Once we hear God speaking, then faith comes to us. Which means faith cannot come when we did not have an opportunity to do what? To hear. Hear, my children. Faith comes by hearing the word of God. Now that is the book that is Romans chapter 10 verse 17. Now, God spoke to me here. Hear. Brothers and sisters, let's have an opportunity of hearing now. Hearing. We are called God's children, and because we are God's children, we are put in a position where we have an opportunity to hear. Me and you who are here, we are given an opportunity of hearing, and once we hear, then there is something that comes which is very much important. And what is it? It's the word of God. Which brings what? Brings faith. Amen. Amen. All right. Then it says, give attention. Give attention to know what? Understanding. Now, one other thing that I want us to remember here is that he said, when I was reading this scripture, Proverbs chapter 4, when I was reading this scripture, he says, pay attention to know understanding. Now, when he says to know understanding, the way God was speaking to me is that to know understanding here is to know who God actually is. Now, to God, we are actually his children. If the children of God, who were the first generation of Christians, were not at peace at that time, they were worried. Their setups were so bad that they were so worried. And because they were so worried, they did not find themselves at peace actually. They were troubled. Now, I found myself in a setup like the first generation of Christians who were worried about their setup, who did not know when Christ is going to come, which means they were not at peace. They did not find themselves in a position where they could say, now they are free, or they are having that joy that the Lord has given them. Because they found themselves in a situation where they said, Christ is coming, Christ is coming, Christ is coming. And there were a lot of teachings that were coming during the first time of the first types of Christians, or the first group of Christians in the first generation. Now, Paul wrote this letter to address this problem. And then how is he addressing this problem? The way he addresses the problem, he now writes this letter. He says, be sober. Now, when someone is sober, it is someone who is in his right senses. If you are sober, it means you are in your right senses. And then if you are in your right senses, he now continues. He speaks about something else. And then he says, putting. There is something that he's telling them. They must be sober. That is verse 8. They are the children of the light. Now, if you read it from verse 1, 1 Thessalonians, they are the children of the light. They are not the children of darkness. Just as we are the children of the light, we are not the children of darkness. Now, he says, be sober. Be sober. And then if you are sober, someone who is sober is not drunk. His senses are correct. Now, if you are sober, now he says to them, putting on. There is something that is telling them to do. He says, putting on. There is something that we are supposed to dress. Putting on. What is it that must be put on? The breastplate. Putting on the breastplate of faith and what? And love. Putting on the breastplate of faith and love. Amen, bazalwane. Amen, bazalwane.